Let me know if you need.
All right, we're back.
Hold on, we're coming back. All right, we're back.
All right, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. So the Planet Green Shoes officially episode number 385. Calling it The Godfather. Beside me now, ready to talk marijuana history is Tim Beck. Thanks again for being here, Tim. Let's start with a lot of people don't know this, but or they may not have any idea how this whole thing began. But there was a time when marijuana in Michigan was just illegal under the public health code, and there was no local ordinances. And then all of a sudden there was some local ordinances that passed that you had a direct impact on. Explain that and how that came about, what cities we're talking about, and how did you think to do that then?
Good question. Well, I would say the first hero was John Sinclair in a sense back then, but after John left, things went into a dormant stage, and Greg Schmidt, in my opinion, resurrected that with this PRA, and that's caught my attention. I was at Hash Bash, and I listened to Jack Harrar. He spoke. It was prior to his stroke, and he explained how easy it was to get something on the ballot. Each person, you've got how many smokers in Michigan, whatever, and all you need, is 300 people committing to getting 1,000 signatures. Back then, I said, well, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm going to do it, and I did it. I fulfilled my part of the commitment, and it never worked out. It was a good effort. I have no apologies or anything like that, but that was a creator Greg, to some degree, as a prophet without honor in a way, because he got that going, really.
Be more specific. We're talking about the personal rights
personal responsibility amendment. Yeah, and it activated a lot of folks back. I mean, this was in
2000.
Yeah, 2000. That's right. Yeah, 2000. Then they had a second one that didn't work out either. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, that's right.
Which strategically would have covered the protections of people responsibly using marijuana. Am I right?
Well, it was just straight out legalization. Hardcore.
Okay.
There was no kidding around about this one.
Okay.
And see, Greg's dad was a big player in the Republican Party in Michigan. He's responsible for the Headley Amendment. He's one of the people who put that together, and he's practically single-handedly responsible for term limits. That's Greg's dad's creation. And so I got to know Greg, and then I was at a point in my life, I had my own business, things were just going really nice. I was kind of bored, I didn't want to sell insurance anymore, and I had a kind of a business that functioned itself. Anybody knows anything about insurance, you get a percentage, and as long as the person pays the premium, you get that percentage, and it just goes on forever, as long as that's, the client. So if you're, you still have a relationship. And so, I mean, the business was running great, and I just got to thinking about from this thing at Hashback with Greg, and I started looking into the subject, and I heard about the California medical marijuana passage, and back in '96, that was 4 years ago. I said, damn, now that is doable. That we can do. That this is going to pass. And so I had quite a good amount of political skills within the Republican Party. I was editor of the party newsletter in Grosse Pointe for 3 years. I was a candidate for state representative, and all the top people liked me. I mean, it just wasn't my turn. It was an 8-person primary, and it was the Republican primary, and only a Republican would get elected to that seat. So
sure.
But I came in, I think, 4th or something like that. But I made a good impression on people, and I got to know a lot of folks and how things got done. And then I had a falling out with the Republican Party, and they didn't like the newsletter. They didn't like the style of the newsletter. You see, I did creative stuff like had candid photos of individuals, and they didn't want their photograph taken. And I had little, and I had little stuff underneath. It was called the GOP party page, and I would expertise in taking pictures of Republicans talking to Democrats, and just putting there, just with a very little comment, so people could read it. But it got too popular, so they said I had to. I said, well, you need a minister of propaganda. That's all right. I understand. I don't mean to be harsh or curt, but this is going good. People are going to be disappointed, but I know you have your things to do, okay, and they're not mine. So that was it. And I kind of left the Republican Party, and I got to thinking just doing something on my own. And I thought, medical marijuana in Detroit. Bammo. I studied the law. It didn't take a lot of signatures. it seemed I was doing fine. I mean, some people spend 40,000 on a boat. Okay, well, I don't need a boat. I wanted to spend 40,000 on a ballot initiative. Okay, so that's what happened, and we tried in 2002 due to faulty legal advice. The first one failed to make the ballot, even though we got all the signatures. That was it. We had to just eat it and walk away, and then I appealed to the Court of Appeals to make sure we knew what the rules were this time. And so 2 years later, we came back, in '04. And I was just thinking about that because, the 911 disaster, you're supposed to remember where you were when 911 hit. Well, I do remember. I was out gathering signatures for my ballot initiative. And that was the Democratic Party primary. So any sig at that polling place, that's going to be a good signature. So that's what I was doing on 9/11. People were talking about it in the parking lot. But anyway, we got we got a decision from the State Appeals Court that here's the map. Basically said, just do it this way, and you're cool. So we did it again. This time, they put it on ballot.
This is 2004 in Detroit.
Yeah, in four.
Okay.
Passed.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was a young lawyer practicing around then, and came up every now and then. If not a lot of people knew about it, what it meant, and it was very broad. If I recall, it was just for any medical purpose recommended by a doctor without any limitations.
Well, it was filled with holes according to the editorialists, but and that's what it was. And people just passed.
Holes are where people don't get arrested.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have the so-called flaw, the worst flaw. Oh, this is terrible. That anybody with any kind of medical certification can recommend marijuana.
Yeah.
It could be a dentist, it could be a nurse, it could be an LPN.
It was really,
so it was that wide open. Anyone who's been that licensing,
Support.
and it passed.
Yeah.
So.
And then that was 2004, and then this was you figured out what the formula was, and then other cities after that. Am I right? Like there's 2006,
Yeah.
the Gippsland, maybe. There was
there was
Flint.
yeah. What happened after that? Then we finally had a movement, and I became head of Michigan Normal, and we under the name of Michigan Normal. Well, we had our own committee name, but it was basically Michigan Normal. We had medical marijuana initiatives in Ferndale, Traverse City, and Flint, and they all won. And then, of course, there was Ann Arbor, which Chuck Green led. That passed.
And it was still in 2004 or
or
just 2006?
Well, we were talking 6. That's what we did
Right.
later.
Okay. Right.
We got that going. And then MPP really took an interest. And I was always trying to cultivate MPP. Believe me, I do all the right things, to make sure I'm on the radar screen.
Sure.
It's properly promoted.
And let's set this up. Let's set this up, 'cause this is an important part in the Michigan history, I think, right now, because we've got this. How much time do we got in this?
7 minutes.
Oh, good. So, because to put it into context, it's, there's the Michigan Normal, which is a legalization. Everyone knows this, but just for those that don't, it's legalization, all-out legalization organization.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really, at the time, I don't think they really had like a medical platform, but this is a path seen by the board and the people that were in charge, and it was clearly a identifiable strategy. Whether you believed in it or not at the time, as a stepping stone to lessen the penalties, with the idea later on that there would be some kind of other.
Well, I can tell you that was my plan.
Go on.
That was the deal from day one. I'm almost ashamed that I lied and said, no, it's just about medical. We just care about people. We know that legal things, and we don't want that stuff. It's too scary. No, fuck you. That was my attitude anyway. And so, I should have.
And you've been outspoken about that. You've been really like.
Oh, I've never hid that. I've never hid that.
And you've got some criticism about it, but this has been. It's a strategy. It's a strategy. It's a path. And whether you believe it or not, that was my point. I started.
Exactly.
Whether you believe in medical or not, it is.
Exactly.
It's something that's acceptable. It's a politically aligns people, and it's another lessening of the prohibition. So go on about that. So that was 2000.
Yeah, that
6.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2006.
That
So
was
here
in
comes
6,
MPP.
Yeah, MPP,
They're interested because they see there's some political clout here. people are getting to the polls. There is some extraordinary activism that's taking place. And explain what happens when that happens, because like you guys are really like in charge of this movement. Name some other people that were there too. You had we're talking 2006, 2007.
Yeah, that.
Who were the leaders? People like
Well,
are curious to know like who was.
I would say the individuals responsible for the ballot initiatives. A guy Donald O'Leary, from Ferndale. He was the local person, that did that. He was recommended by Stephanie Loveless back then, and when there was a different name. But anyway, so Donald, really, he was ambitious, and it was basically him and me that gathered the signatures, and he had his Paris, a couple other friends. It wasn't a lot of sigs to get, but we did it, and we got on the ballot, and it passed. And then
Ferndale.
Yeah, Ferndale, and
okay.
then there was Flint, and we had this Brian Morrissey and Charles Murphy, and they were two young activists. They were true believers in the best sense of the word, and we just somehow connected, so yeah, let's do it there. And then there was Traverse City, and that was another one. But Chuck Green was responding. There was Matt and Laura Barber. This was a patient, okay, but in many ways, but nonetheless, it was very, it was quite effective, and the Barbers were good, and then Chuck Green stepped in because I didn't get along, with some of the people,
With the normal?
wasn't a good fit. Well, the people that were running the show up in Traverse City. Okay, I could name names, but I don't.
No, I understand. Okay. So whatever. So you had more people. So Chuck came in, and then Ann Arbor went.
Well, Chuck was the one that handled Traverse City, basically mentored it, because they would have had problems.
Okay.
If Chuck wasn't there.
All right. So all those passed.
They
had
did.
1,000 again,
Yeah, they
2006. And you've got this momentum, and then MPP starts finding interest, and all of a sudden 2008 becomes a targeted campaign for medical. Explain what went down there. The people that you mentioned about these various cities, but there's also there's people from the state level. I know there's I don't know if Greg Francisco's involved, Brad Forster maybe. These are just people I know. There's
the ones that in the core of Michigan Normal at the time my board members basically were Adam Brook is one, the gal who's treasured, Christine Landino. There was Melody Carr.
Yeah, Melody Carr and her Helfman.
And Greg Francisco.
Was it Helfman or was Robert? What's his name? No, am I thinking of? Who's
Bob Heflin.
Bob Helfman.
Oh, Bob Heflin. Yes, Bob
Sorry.
Heflin is. Yeah, he was inspirational.
Right.
There, he did.
And they're still around. Those guys, everyone that we just mentioned is still
they're still around.
activating and activists and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so. And you guys have their, and probably Reverend Steve was part of that too, possibly, right? But just it's the normal people, like it's everyone that's been doing it for years, protesting and whatever. Now all of a sudden,
Steve was a beloved, figure basically, at the time, and Steve, he was on the board too. Actually, he was kind of sort of my number 2 man if I got. Well, something terrible happened to me.
Sure.
And that was the thing. And so, those were the folks basically at the time.
and I just said it's important for those that may not understand. And when we come back after this segment ends, we can talk about as MPP enters the state of Michigan and how they begin to develop the medical marijuana initiative of 2008 for a statewide ballot initiative. But it is important to point out here, we're talking. These are the undeveloped years. This is when there's no real statewide activism. The normal groups are far and few between.
Because everyone's going to jail.
That's what I'm saying. Wearing a shirt got you probable cause to pull over. You got a bumper sticker on. You're going to these camps or whatever, and if anyone finds out about it, it's quite different. A lot of last 8-10 years, the ability to even converse about it public without public ridicule or criminal sanction is just, that's been one of the more amazing things that happen. So, so those that don't know anything about activism, that came before.
That's what medical really brought, I think, was the ability to just talk about it openly, use it openly, grow it openly. You could never do that before.
But there wouldn't have been anything without, all the people that we just mentioned.
Tim and I have talked about this in the past, the normalization of marijuana, and that's that's how we win elections. It's a normal thing, and you bring it forth as normal, and it's normal now.
Well, I
It's
had
normal.
a political mentor. I mean, I've had a couple. The man's deceased now, so I can mention his name. His name was Palmer Heenan. He was mayor of Grosse Pointe Park for many, many, many years. He got his start. It's really interesting because in the 50s he was in the John Birch Society, and then he got active, in the party, and he gradually got less conservative, let's put it that way, enough to get him elected mayor of Grosse Pointe Park. And he kind of, and he his campaign slogan was very clever. Really sent a message just in one sentence. Grosse Pointe must be a superior community. What do you think that means, everybody?
I can take a guess.
Yes. So he got elected. That was real clear. Thank you. So, but he complimented me. I got to know him. He was like the local power broker, back there, and and he told me, and he told me one time that if you're advocating an idea that's considered radical or unusual or extreme or something like that, you want to describe the whatever it is in the most normal terms. You don't act threatening, you don't act scared, you don't show any anger. You talk like it's just normal.
It's just,
it's that,
and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
been
exactly
successful.
the idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I learned. I mean, from this man.
That's what you told me, and I
Yeah.
took that forward, and it worked.
Yeah.
That's what worked.
Yeah.
It is really the normalizing of it.
It's normalizing.
Just
Here
so-
I am, I
yeah,
think,
that's
yeah.
really the way to be able
I'm
to
here
speak
and
about
it's
it.
normal and-
Yeah, we're still not there yet. I'd like to think that
We're getting
we will be
closer.
talking about it differently than that my kids know about it. You know what I'm saying? The kids today, 8, 7, 10, 6, when they're 20, I hope the conversation is much different. You know what I mean, in terms of normalizing. But Jim, we're gonna take a quick break here.
Quick break.
Call a number. Jim is what?
224-803-30.
We give it out, but no, we don't really take any calls. But just in case someone wanted to call, we had some time. All right, we'll be right back after this.